Yes, I feel like the universe, I really feel, I feel like the universe said, okay, it's time for you to step away. We're going to be shifting things.
Let's take a quick moment to thank the people that support and sponsor the podcast. When life takes an unexpected turn, you deserve someone who will stand beside you. St. Louis attorney Chris Dully offers experienced one-on-one legal defense. Call 314-384-4000 or 314-DUI-HELP, or you can visit dullylawfirm.com. That's DULLE lawfirm.com for a free consultation.
Every life has moments that change us, things that crack us wide open and invite us to come back to ourselves or even find something new. Here on Hope Comes to Visit, we make space for those stories, the messy middles, the unexpected turns, the resilience, and the healing, and of course, the hope that we hope finds us along the way. I'm Danielle Elliott-Smith, and I am so glad you're here for this episode. Today on Hope Comes to Visit, I'm joined by Dr. Durga Larkin, a board-certified ophthalmologist, speaker, and author of the new book, Timeless Vision, who graduated from the University of Pennsylvania and earned her medical degree from Duke University before spending decades as a highly respected cataract surgeon. For years, the operating room was more than simply where she worked. It was purpose, identity, structure, and mastery. But after an unexpected injury fractured her dominant arm, Dr. Durga found herself stepping away from the role that had defined so much of her life and facing a much deeper question in the process. Who are we when the role we've built our identity around begins to change? What followed was not simply physical recovery, but an honest and deeply human reckoning around reinvention, about what it means to reimagine ourselves when life no longer looks the way we expected it to. This conversation is thoughtful, reflective, and one I think will resonate with anyone navigating change, transition, or the complicated process of becoming someone new. Dr. Durga, thank you so much for being here with me. I'm so grateful to have you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you.
Yeah, this is a good one. Yeah. Let's start with your book. Okay. Your book is called Timeless Vision. Yes. So what inspired you to start writing? Going from being a cataract surgeon to writing. I mean, those are two, that's right brain and left brain.
It is very much right brain and left brain. And actually, the ideas that I had that come out in the book have been percolating in my brain for a number of years before I ever even thought of writing a book. And the book was actually written before I had my accident. So I had already been thinking these thoughts of how do we age? How can we view aging in a way that can be empowered and feel good about the future and not being afraid of the future? How I noticed that through my years as an eye surgeon, I saw patients of all ages, but particularly the ages of 50 and older. And I saw many people go through transitions in their lives. And I noticed that some people were still able to have fulfilling lives and being vibrant at 80, 90, even 100. And then other people might even have similar backgrounds or similar events happen in their lives and not age well and have a lot of difficulty adjusting after an event or a loss or a setback. So I noticed that these differences were very profound, and I started really thinking deeply about why was that. So
was it curiosity for you in terms of how do I go down one path and not the other? Or was it curiosity in terms of why is that? Like what is the magic sauce?
It really was a combination of those. It was, what is the magic sauce and how do I make sure I'm going down the good path?
Okay.
And I had I developed some friendships of people who were in their 80s and 90s, and I started to really pay attention to how are they having such great, fulfilling lives at 80 and 90. And it wasn't that they hadn't had difficult events in their lives. They had, and yet they were still able to get past that. So a couple of things I realized in backing up was that we are aging every day. From the moment we're born, we're aging. And when we're first born till about toddlerhood, we're very excited about the world. We're just experiencing the world and we're not judging in any way. We're just absorbing. And then we start going to preschool and kindergarten. And from that point on to around 20, we're very excited about getting older, actually. We can't wait to be an adult and get out there into the world and do all the exciting things that adults get to do. And then around in our early 20s, we say, okay, let's slow this down a bit. I like where I am. I don't know that I want to actually go out and adult and have all the adult responsibilities. And then around 30 or so, I have two daughters and they're both right around 30, and so are their significant others. And I realized that is when people start to feel they want to start slowing down, put the brakes on our aging process. And so if we think that we could live till 80, 90, 100, but even conservatively 80, 30 to 80 is 50 years of trying to resist aging. And we think about things that, and even at 30, we start thinking about the future in terms of aging being lost, diminishment. It's a time when people say, oh, my back aches a little bit because I moved the wrong way, or I stayed up too late at night and now I'm exhausted the following day. So it's already starting at an early time where we're making that concept of like, okay, it's potentially a downhill slope from here. Then if you take on top of it events that happen in our lives as human beings, such as loss of a loved one, a job loss or transition or retirement or medical diagnosis, that throws us off our path even more. So how do we live, an empowered, beautiful life despite the things that happen to us as human beings through our journey?
What did you find?
What's that?
What did you find in doing
so what I found
research and having these friends who are older? And because to me, aging comes in so many different categories, right? I look at just the physical aging of our skin. I mentioned to you, but when we were off air, my daughter graduated from Ole Miss this weekend. Yeah. When I tell you that there are so many young girls getting Botox and absolutely. Like so many fillers, like, so that is, there's an anti-aging, I don't want to look old, right?
And then there is not at 30, but in the 20s.
Right. That's what I mean. Very young 20s, right? Yes. I'm down at a college campus and many young girls are getting Botox and do whatever you want. Right. So, but I'm noticing it's happening much younger. The first time I used Botox, I was 38. So, and that's when I decided I needed it. And I have no problem with anyone who decides they want to. But to me, that is one element of, I don't want to look older. And then there is the element of, I don't want to feel older. It's harder to get out of bed. Am I moving enough? And then there is the aging in terms of mental health, right? Like knowing people, getting out, socializing. So when you start to dive into this, which avenue did you find was most interesting, most impactful in terms of taking care of ourselves for aging?
Well, I think that for most people, it's an obvious thing, or most of us know that we have to take good care of ourselves physically, and we have to exercise, and we have to eat well. So we know that. And we know sort of conceptually that we need to have a good attitude, but and that our spiritual and mental health are important. But what does that really mean? So a lot of us say, yeah, I want to have a good attitude, but I can't because I don't feel well and I have this diagnosis and I just had a loss or I've had a big change in my life. So what I noticed was the people that did have long, fulfilling lives, they did have a different attitude. And it was it's not just about being positive, but it's about being conscious, intentional, having a vision. And that's where the title came from, Timeless Vision, is that there is not an end point of when we have a vision for our life, that we can have a vision of our life from 20 or even younger on, and it may be a different vision over time. It may evolve, but we still can have a vision of what we want to be, what we want to do, even in the 90s. And in fact, I just saw a patient the other day who was 100, and he was telling me how he wanted to become more involved socially, and he needed to be able to communicate more with people. And I thought, he has a vision of himself being more social. And I thought, wow, that is great at 100 years old. So having a vision and consciously wanting to live a fulfilling life, having intention about it, choosing positive ways to think, positive ways to behave, not just eating right and exercising, but how can it's really the mind, body, spiritual self is all connected, and we really can't separate those things out. So we have to look at all those things. So in terms of what I'm writing about, it really is the more emotional, spiritual health that I'm concentrating on, because that's where a lot of people have difficulty. Women tend to be, and this is a generalization, but women tend to have more self-reflection and self-awareness, but they still struggle with particularly the aging concept. Men that struggle with aging as well, but a little less outwardly so. Sometimes it's a little more subtle. For women, it's more dramatic. It's about how they look, and your worth goes down as you get older and you get gray hair and you get wrinkles. Men, not so much, but, and we all do feel it, but women particularly, and we've got the biological clock, menopause, empty nest. So there's a lot more sort of signposts, if you will, of us aging. So we have to, at each step, self-reflect honestly and non-judgmentally about, okay, where am I right now in my life? What do I like about what's going on in my life? And are there things I would like to change in my life? And then think about, okay, what are some small changes that I could make in my life so that I can feel fulfilled and kind of have the next phase of my vision of where I want to be going forward.
See, I love this because you're using, so vision is almost a double entendre just based on how you've worked and what you're saying. So when you say vision, you mean almost goals and plans and ideas.
Goals, yes.
Right. You mean things that we still want to do, whether it's read 10 books in the next year or walk to the library or learn to play an instrument or see a family member or travel and so it doesn't have to be a big, oh my gosh, I always wanted to be an artist.
No, not at all. And in fact, a lot of times it's not that. It's small changes, or just, it doesn't have to be a big dramatic thing. It's like a lot of things too. You may want to do something big and dramatic, but just making small changes is, that's a wonderful first step. And the concept of vision and inner vision. I actually, through my book, I have there are a lot of ophthalmology metaphors, a lot of vision metaphors. Okay. And another good one to keep in mind as we're talking about sort of what does it mean to be looking toward the future is we have blind spots. And one of the things that holds us back in terms of doing what we want to do in our life and being able to see the potential going forward, or if something happens to us, an event, like how can we pivot or what can we do next, is these blind spots. And what they are essentially is disempowering beliefs. So I was talking about how when kids start in school, they get very excited about aging and getting older and doing adult things. But the other thing that happens is they start acquiring labels. And the smart one, the learning disabled one, the athletic one, the slow one, the sleepy one. So we start acquiring those labels and internalizing them at a really young age. And that persists through life. It obviously can change, but it can be very difficult to remove those labels. And then as people get older, they take on other labels, our roles, and we very often tend to rigidly identify with who we are. I'm a mother. For me, I'm a surgeon. Right. I'm a, podcast producer. So whatever it is, we tend to rigidly identify that with that. And then if something happens, it can be hard to see, hard to change, or to see the possibilities that could come with change. So, and that's, so my personal story comes into play there.
Right.
So the book was all things I've observed through the years, and I know deep in my heart, I feel it's wisdom that I want to pass along. But I did go through my own personal event, which was in December. I fell. I had a big fracture of my arm. It was my surgical arm. And all of a sudden, I couldn't work. I couldn't even be in the office. And I was out for a number of months. I had 2 surgeries. And for most people, breaking their arm or breaking their wrist, it's very painful, but you go through the process, you heal, and then you move on, you go back to what you were doing before. But as a surgeon, it's a life-altering event.
Okay.
And I realized that it became a blessing in disguise, because I had been living such an intense life, and I felt like I had to be perfect all the time. Mm-hmm. And there's a pressure that comes with that. And it wasn't until, and I would never, even on vacation, you still carry that, because you know you're coming back to the pressure cooker. So all of a sudden, I had time to rest and reflect. And it was actually a relief. It was like, wow, this is could be a new phase of my life. But the whole time I was still thinking, at some point I'm going back to surgery. And then when it came time to go back to work, I still was having some issues with my dexterity, and that's important for a surgeon. So I was thinking I'll have to put that off a little longer. And then I realized I didn't want to return to surgery anymore, that I wanted to make a pivot. I didn't want to do anything where I wouldn't be perfect. And eye surgery, you have to be perfect. So I decided to retire from cataract surgery. I'm still practicing in the office. I treat glaucoma and a number of other medical conditions of the eyes. But now I'm focusing on spreading my message of empowerment, and I'm actually living it. I had to make a big pivot and say, what am I going to do? That my livelihood is threatened right now. And my whole sense of identity and who I am, who am I and where am I going right now? So
the universe said, you're going to talk about this vision. How would you like to live it?
Exactly. I had to live it. And
So this entire time you are writing about having a vision and empowerment, and the universe said, okay, you're talking it. How do you feel about walking it?
Exactly. That's exactly it. And I always talk about people who talk the talk, but don't walk the walk. And here it was time for me to not only talk the talk, but to walk the walk. But what it made me realize is that all the things I had written about and thought about and talked about really were true. It made me feel what I had written about even more deeply, and feel even more committed to the importance of how we want to look going forward. And another aspect to that is finding meaning. So, for instance, if I'm not going to do cataract surgery anymore, and that's really meaningful to me, and being in the office is meaningful, of course, but it was sort of a big way to help people. I felt like I wanted to find another thing that would be very meaningful to me. And that's, talking about my book and spreading that message. But an important part of that aspect to it is that having a sense of meaning and purpose at every phase of your life is important. And it's not just a theoretical concept or just psychological even, but it's actually physiological. And they've done studies on cancer patients who have a sense of purpose or meaning or something they've got to get back to. And they have better longevity and survival rates. And a great study just came back out from Yale. Dr. Becca Levy did a longitudinal study of people getting older, and she found that when people had purpose and meaning and made intentional choices about trying to live their best lives, that they actually not only stabilized in terms of their cognitive health, their physical health, and mental health, but they actually could make improvements, which is really great. So it's exciting news because not only can we sense that if we take care of ourselves, mind, body, and spirit, that we will stabilize ourselves going forward, if you will, but we can actually improve ourselves. And so that's a really important thing to keep in mind, and motivating for people.
I want to go back to something that you said that I found so interesting, because I have been guilty of it as well. And I know that many women do this. You mentioned that even when you were on vacation, you were still in that pressure cooker mindset, and that once you were injured and having surgery, you found you could really rest.
Right.
I can remember being with a therapist and the therapist saying, you need rest. And I said, I'm getting ready to have surgery. I can rest after that. And she said, you hear yourself right now?
Exactly.
You legitimately are talking about needing surgery in order to take time for yourself.
Yes.
That's how infrequently we make that time. How important is it, do you think, even in hindsight, for you, for us, for women, for everyone, to recognize that taking care of ourselves, and part of that vision is to prioritize ourselves, even in a small capacity, even in the midst of the chaos of raising families and having jobs, but finding a way to have some of that vision for ourselves moving forward?
It's actually really crucial for both our physical health and our mental health. And, because of the whole mind-body connection, when we are building up stresses and there's no outlet for it, it actually, can tip us over into illness. It's not that it causes the illness, but it's just that it's sending off all kinds of negative signals to the rest of your body. And our body has difficulty dealing with that. And so it's more than just a conceptual thing. We have to really think about. I remember being at the doctor's office just for routine appointments and thinking, this is good. I have a time to relax and rest. And we should not have to have something bad happen to us or be at a doctor's office to take the opportunity to rest. The problem is the way society is now, with cell phones and computers, and there's web service everywhere you go. You never are uncontactable. And so there's this whole concept that you can't take time off. So when you're resting, you know that someone can get a hold of you. And our society doesn't respect taking time off or ending early, or, I have ease in my job. It promotes constant work, and people love to say, I'm so busy, I don't have time to do anything.
Connection.
And
being contactable, being connected in some capacity, just in case, at all times. There are moments when I think, how did I survive the 80s and the 90s? I went all the way through college with no cell phone.
I know.
How did we find each other? How did we survive when we couldn't say to somebody, I'm running late, I'm not going to be there, I can't find it, I'm like, where's the map? I sometimes wonder, how did we survive? And yet we did. And so
we did. Yep. And granted, the technology, it's a double-edged sword. There are beautiful things. It's great to know you can contact your children, or if you get stuck on the road, you can make a phone call, or if you're late for a meeting, you can let them know. So obviously that's a wonderful thing. Absolutely. But it's that other side of it where you really can't take a break. And then people know that, well, if you're taking a break, you must have your phone off, or that you really are accessible. And particularly with certain types of jobs, it's not excusable. Like, you can't do that. And so it really is important to carve out that time.
Right. I also think that it means that we don't know how to sit still. Kids don't know how to sit still. We don't know how to sit still. There are times I played this little game with myself where I'll be sitting and I'll think, like you go to reach for your phone because it's almost like your brain is asking for something to do.
Yes.
It's asking to be occupied because I've trained it that way now. Right. I've
Absolutely.
trained it in scrolling. I've trained it in searching. I've trained it in reading. And I've been working really hard lately to press pause.
I've been trying to do the same thing, actually, particularly when I'm, say, waiting somewhere, could be anywhere. And particularly, for instance, in an airport would be a good example.
Yep.
And I'm really trying to not look at my phone or not go on the computer. And I find myself, unconsciously reaching for it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give myself time. So I'm consciously making that effort as well. But it takes a lot of effort.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. It's almost a retraining. I want to ask you as well, because it seems as though, at least the way you're speaking about it, the transition between recognizing that maybe you weren't going to be at your very best and cataract surgery requires you to be at your very best, to where you are now, like everything sort of coincided and pushed you towards this path, that it wasn't terribly tumultuous mentally. And yet I wonder about that, because this is who you have been for so long. What was that transition really like? What was the moment when you said, because I imagine first breaking your wrist, you think, no. Like, I need my wrist. I need this mobility. What was the point that you thought, maybe I can't? And then transitioned to, maybe that's okay. Maybe I want it that way. And maybe this is an opportunity to carve out an entirely new identity. I don't necessarily know that would have, I certainly don't imagine it was in a 24-hour period of time, but
it actually was. It was sort of interesting because at first, of course, there was like that panic of, oh, what am I going to do? When am I going to operate? And then, but there was deep inside of me pretty quickly, as soon as I got past the intense pain, that started kind of liking not to have that pressure that I had had, and sort of, wow, I can really rest and relax a bit. And there wasn't a single defined moment when I realized that deep within my being, I've been operating for 35 years and I was feeling sort of ready to pass the torch. And I would never have done it if it weren't for this accident. And it's kind of this accident gave me permission to do what I was feeling actually deep within my being. And it wasn't until I had to have courage to do it. Because everybody just assumed I would be back. I had patients waiting for me. I had, schedules that everybody was on hold and they were waiting for me to come back. And it was a very big decision for me to make. And I, very deep, I kind of felt that I didn't want to go back pretty early on, but I didn't acknowledge it consciously until maybe about a month in, and I started thinking about it. And yet outwardly, I didn't talk about it at all. Other than I do have a close relationship with my kids. I did discuss it with them that I had these deep feelings. But other than that, I made no indication to anybody that I was ever thinking of not returning to surgery. And it wasn't until pretty much right before I had to go back, like literally a week before, that I said, you know what? I'm not returning to surgery. So it was a very big deal to do that. I think it would have been I am 65, so I think it would have been very different if I was in my 40s or 50s. So I'm not sure, but I would say that it probably would be the case. But because I did feel that feeling of I've been doing this for so long, it's okay to step away from it. But I never would have done it. I never would have stepped away if it weren't for this injury. It sounds as
though your system had been craving peace.
Yes, I feel like the universe. I really feel. I feel like the universe said, "Okay, it's time for you to step away. We're going to be shifting things." You are feeling sort of a strain, if you will, doing this. And I also always felt like I wanted to step away at a time when I was going to be at my peak, not have to step away because of skill level or something declining. So in a way, it gave me that permission to do so when I never would have given myself permission otherwise. So the universe gave me permission. So that's kind of how I think about it.
How much of your pressure do you think was self-induced? You mentioned perfection earlier. I know I tend to be perfectionist. And I think that when I look back on all of this, I can't stop, I can't rest. That was me telling myself that I couldn't stop or couldn't rest. I was the one required to make the change. And
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I think that is true in my life. I've been a perfectionist, and I was a perfectionist in pretty much everything I do. But I also chose a field where you have to be a perfectionist. When you're doing eye surgery, you cannot not be a perfectionist. You have to be a perfectionist. So it selects for perfectionists. You can't have a type B casual eye surgeon. So I was in a career that kept that going. I couldn't step away from perfectionism if I wanted to.
Right.
And so it's not like I could say, oh, I'm going to do surgery, but I'm going to be casual about it. I'm going to have a more casual attitude. You're not able to do that. So I had selected for myself a career that demanded perfectionism. And also, so the only way to not be that way was to step away from that. Totally.
What would you recommend for someone who is potentially facing a career shift the way you are right now, or the way you have?
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the very most important things to do first, and this is true with any kind of life change, a career change, but also if you've had a loss in your life, if you're going to be retiring, even things like empty nest or a medical diagnosis, all these big events that happen that have impact on our lives going forward, you have to sit quietly and really look inward and be self-reflective in a very non-judgmental way. And again, and be honest with yourself about what's holding you back. Are you afraid of change? Are you afraid of what could happen? Do you have regrets from the past, or a regret that you didn't choose a path in the path that you really would have liked to? Do you feel guilt about things? So it's important to acknowledge those things, forgive yourself, and then move on and say, okay, those things happened in the past. I'm going to make some changes now. What is it that I really, really would like to do? And it's an easy thing to say, but difficult to do. Say, well, if you're following your passion, you'll have an income. And it's not always that easy, and it's not always practical. So it may be that you have ideas about shifting to another career or developing other areas of yourself, but it might be for a while that you still have to continue doing what you're doing, because if you have to make a living, if you're not retired, there's the practical aspect of it. And, there's a whole other path we could take about manifesting things, and that's not what we're going to talk. That's not what it's about today. But, so the idea is that so say you want to be a writer, is what can I do to start being a writer? Do I want to write a book? Do I want to write poems? And then start giving yourself time to do that. Start with a journal. So part of it is being reflective, and good ways to do that are to meditate. And a lot of people are very intimidated by meditating. Many of us have the monkey mind, and we feel like we can't calm our minds down. And I would say that meditation does take a little bit of discipline, but even if you can just do breathe into the count of 4 and out to the count of 6 is a favorite of mine, because it's so easy to do. And you just gradually slow down your breath, because how your nervous system feels also affects your emotions and your mind, it's the mind-body alignment again, where you want to calm your body, and that will also calm your mind. I actually created a meditation that I have on my website that is only 5 minutes. And even someone who says they can't meditate can do 5 minutes, and just think of it as a guided relaxation rather than a meditation.
That's fantastic.
That can be really helpful.
And what is the website?
It's durgalarkinmd.com, all lowercase.
Spell it for everyone.
Yeah, it's DURGA LARKINMD.com.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I always recommend Insight Timer as well, which is an app, and it's meditations for free. There's guided meditations that allows you to check in and say, I'm having a good day. I'm having a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
I need something that's anti-anxiety. I need something that helps me sleep. I need something that is calming. And it gives you, do you want 3 minutes? Do you want 5? Do you want 25? And so I've been using Insight Timer for many years now.
There's so many options, and there's so many different types of meditations available. I think that for someone starting out, the idea of just sitting quietly and, watching your thoughts go by is very, very difficult. I think if you're just starting, it really helps to have some guidance, because I've been meditating now for a number of years, and I love it. It's my go-to to calm me down. And I actually meditate in the middle of the day. I close my office door, and it's like no one's allowed to disturb me. But it's sort of my reset. But I still like a guided meditation, because I do have a brain that's always going, and I can have, even now, I have difficulty quieting that monkey mind. So having those guided meditations, when my mind starts to wander off, I can come back to what the person is saying.
I am very much the same. My brain is always going.
Yeah.
What is your timeless vision for yourself? And has that shifted, considering that your accident happened after the book was done?
Well, I know that it is definitely shifted. I had no intention of retiring from cataract surgery when I did. I had the intention of publishing the book, and I really didn't know where it was going to go from that. I thought the idea of speaking engagements and podcasts was nice, but I hadn't thought much beyond just getting it published. And so everything changed when I had my accident, and when I started thinking about the possibility that I wouldn't, because I didn't even know at first, could I go back to surgery if I wanted to? And so I had to really start thinking about, what am I going to be doing? And I started thinking more and more about the timeless vision and the message. And then also I was getting a lot of feedback from people, a lot of positive reinforcement and messages and notes from readers saying how much they appreciated the message, and, that they thought I should get the message out there. So it took on a life of its own that I hadn't planned and I had not predicted, actually. So this whole thing with my accident was a huge pivot in my life. It was a big turning point in my life that was not planned.
But you have recognized it for what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Dr.
And
Durga,
I actually feel grateful for it.
Dr. Durga, how do you define hope?
I define hope with never giving up, always feeling that there's good things coming. And I think that in the world right now, there's so much chaos. We all need hope. We all need to feel, okay, there are good times coming, and there is beauty and goodness in this world, even right now, despite all the chaos around us. And so part of that, to help us feel that way, is one, I'm hoping to inspire people to feel, what I'm trying to do is be my best self so I can help others be their best selves, but also doing a little bit of gratitude every day, just even if you do 3 things that you're grateful for, to see the beautiful things that we do have in our life. And it sounds trite, perhaps, but it really is very valuable, and it's quite effective to help your mindset see the positive things in your life and in this world, rather than just the barrage of negative things coming at us.
I love your notion of having a vision, keeping us young. Where can everyone find you and the book?
Well, you can find me on durgalarkinmd.com, and you can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Facebook and Instagram are Dr. Durga Larkin, and then Instagram is Durga Larkin MD. LinkedIn is Durga Larkin MD. And then you can find Timeless Vision anywhere you books are sold. And I have a Kindle version, and I also recorded my own Audible version.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So people have said they like it because they can see me talking to them.
That's perfect.
In their minds.
That's a dream. I love that.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. I'm so grateful to you for spending time with me today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Likewise. Good luck with everything, including your timeless vision.
Thank you.
Friends, I am so grateful to you as well for spending time with Dr. Durga and I hope that this has inspired you to start planning for, seeking out, and sharing the visions that you have for your life to keep aging at bay, right? So go ahead and share this episode with anyone you know who needs to hear it. Find Dr. Durga's book, Timeless Vision, and until we spend time together again next time, take very good care of you.
Naturally, it's important to thank the people who support and sponsor the podcast. This episode is supported by Chris Dully, a trusted criminal defense attorney and friend of mine here in St. Louis, who believes in second chances and solid representation. Whether you're facing a DWI, felony, or traffic issue, Chris handles your case personally with clarity, compassion, and over 15 years of experience. When things feel uncertain, it helps to have someone steady in your corner. Call 314-384-4000 or 314-DUI-HELP, or you can visit dullylawfirm.com to schedule your free consultation.